Hi everyone. What a fantastic time to talk about fatigue. You've all had lunch, you've probably got full bellies, you've been listening to very experienced speakers all morning, so you're probably all slightly fatigued. So what a great time to start. Thanks, Rochelle. So I feel very privileged to have the opportunity to talk to you today because fighting fatigue is a subject that I'm really passionate about. And one of the reasons I am passionate is, as working as a cancer rehab physio, I've seen the consequences of fatigue on the people impacted by fatigue, but also the consequences on the family members as well. And it is very real and it often can go on for a long time. I've also seen the consequences of when people do nothing and the fatigue gets worse. But luckily I've seen the transformations in energy levels and vitality and happiness, and that's when people are able to be actively involved in their self-management of their fatigue. You can really make a difference. If you get into the driver's seat and you are able to get right tips for you to help you self-manage your own fatigue. So I've seen those transformations, so I know that it is such a debilitating side effect, but there is things that you can do to help yourself. So over the years that I've been working as a cancer rehab physio, what we do as cancer rehab physios is we don't focus on the cancer treatment, we focus on the impact that has on your body, how you move, how you function. So that's where cancer rehab physios specialise in. So what we do is we assess people individually on the impact of the cancer on them, and then we work with them, and one of the huge components of our work is fatigue management, so helping people manage their fatigue. So I'm really excited to give you some practical tips today, which will hopefully you can add to your self-management toolkit, and hopefully it will help you be able to tolerate more and do more things again. So what is cancer-related fatigue? So firstly, let's be clear, fatigue is not tiredness. Tiredness happens to everybody. It's an expected feeling after certain activities or at the end of the day. Usually you know why you're tired, and after a good night's sleep, you solve the problem. Fatigue, in contrast to tiredness, is a daily lack of energy. It's an unusual and excessive whole body tiredness that's not relieved by rest or sleep. And it can prevent people from functioning normal, and it can really impact people's quality of life. So cancer-related fatigue is one of the most common side effects of cancer and its treatment. So as cancer rehab physios, it's what we see a lot of. It's not predictable by cancer type, cancer treatment, or the stage of illness. And it may come on suddenly for some people, and for some people they just may notice that they've become tired for over some time. So it's either sudden or it can occur really slowly. It's often described as paralysing, and it can continue long after the treatment is completed, so it can affect people for a long time. So what are the consequences of fatigue? Well, from my experiences working as a cancer rehab physio, I've seen that fatigue imposes many challenges on the lives of people affected, and it can significantly interfere with your ability to live fully. So it can affect you physically. You may feel tired and wonder why sleep is both difficult and unhelpful in solving your tiredness. It can decrease muscle strength and endurance of the whole body. And because your energy levels may be affected, it can lead you to engage in less activity. It can affect your work, and it can affect your social life, and it can affect your leisure activity. So it can affect you, all of you physically. It can also affect you cognitively, the way you think. So you may find it hard to concentrate and focus on tasks, and it can make you feel like your brain's overloaded. You may feel your memory is poor, and this again can impact you at work and at home. And it can affect your behaviour. So fatigue can lead to reduced work hours, time off sick, and less engagement in your favourite activities or less time, with family and friends. So it can really affect your behaviour as well. It can also affect your emotions, so how you feel. You can feel frustrated, irritated, it can give you a low mood. So it can affect you physically, cognitively, behaviourally, and it can affect your emotions. So it's not something that should be ignored. It's not something that's not real, it is very real, and it affects every part of your life. So fatigue has lots of contributing factors that reduce quality of life, and if you do less, it can actually get worse. So what causes fatigue? The exact reason is actually unknown, but there are many factors that can be related to cancer-related fatigue, and your cancer treatments obviously are associated with fatigue. So any chemotherapy drug can cause fatigue. Radiation therapy can cause fatigue that increases over time. Bone marrow transplants are well known to cause fatigue, and that can last at least a year. And if you have more than one cancer treatment at the same time or one after the other, that increases your chance of developing fatigue. So anyone undergoing cancer treatment or after treatment, that can be the cause of your fatigue. But there are other factors that also contribute to fatigue, and they include decreased nutrition. So sometimes because of the side effects of treatment, things like nausea, vomiting, mouth sores, and diarrhea, they can impact you and make you feel more fatigued. Anemia is a really big one from cancer treatments, which can cause reduced blood counts, which can lead to anemia, where there is not enough hemoglobin in the blood. So anemia is a really big cause of fatigue for this group. Also hypothyroidism. So if the thyroid gland is underactive, your metabolism may slow down, and so that the body doesn't burn food fast enough to provide adequate energy. So again, hypothyroidism is a big medical reason for fatigue. Symptoms include feeling cold and often unexplained weight gain in addition to severe fatigue. So those are two medical conditions that often can contribute to fatigue as well. But your medications can cause fatigue. So if you've got medications used to treat side effects such as nausea, pain, depression, anxiety, and seizures, they can also all cause fatigue. Chronic pain often increases your fatigue. Being overstressed increases your fatigue. If you overwork yourself, you can become more fatigued. And depression and fatigue often go hand in hand as well, and sometimes it's not clear what starts first, whether you start not feeling great and you get tired, or whether it's the other way around. Also, being inactive can reduce endurance, decondition your muscles, and make you feel more fatigued. Also, hormonal changes. So a side effect of cancer treatment or from medication can cause fatigue. And there are lots of other medications for other illnesses that you may have as well that may cause fatigue. So a classic example of this is blood pressure medications can increase fatigue. So if you are suffering from fatigue, or you know someone that is, it's probably not one cause, it's probably multiple causes. But what can we do about it? You know, how can we help when you have multiple causes and you're suffering from fatigue? Well, I think the first thing, it's really important to remember that you are all individuals, and even if you have the same cancer type as someone else and you've had very similar treatment to someone else, it will affect you in different ways. So there's no one-size-fits-all approach to fatigue management. I can't just give you a script and say, do this, and your energy levels will increase. It's got to be individualised to you personally. Also, the best way to combat fatigue is to treat the underlying medical cause. So if you do have anemia or hypothyroidism, or it's because of some medication you're taking, you need to find that out first. If you haven't seen a GP or someone about your fatigue, it's important that you get those things ruled out first. And then other causes of fatigue must be managed on an individual basis. And PINC STEEL cancer rehab physios can help you with your own fatigue management plan. So they can help work out what are some of the contributing factors for your fatigue and what are some ways you can actually alleviate that. So today I'm going to give you some of my practical tips that I've come up with after working in this field for some time, and hopefully make you feel like you're getting back in the driver's seat so that you are taking some control over your fatigue, so that it doesn't just control you, you're taking some control back. So my first tip, tip number 1, is that it can take a long time to trust and accept your body after a cancer diagnosis. So acceptance is one of the important tools in self-management toolkit, and Acceptance is not about giving up, but recognising that you need to take more control with regards to how you can better self-manage your energy levels. So accept that you've got fatigue and that you can actually take some control of it. So acceptance is a little bit like opening a door that will allow you to see lots of self-management opportunities. It's opening up. And the key is that once that door's open, and you're willing to try new things and do things differently, I think you will find that there are actually a lot of things that may help. You need to stop doing what doesn't work. That may seem obvious, but you do need to stop doing what doesn't work. And part of acceptance is also evaluating your energy level. So if you think of your personal energy stores as a bank, and you have deposits and withdrawals have to be made over the course of a day or over the week to balance your energy. So you have to think about balancing your energy conservation, restoration and expenditure. So thinking about what things that you are doing that are sapping you of energy, what things that you are doing are actually giving you more energy. And keeping a diary is actually a really good way of doing this, even if it's just for 1 week, and identify the time of the day where you are either most fatigued or when you have more energy. And if you're a carer of someone, you could help them do this. So when are they getting really fatigued? Is it in the morning or is it in the afternoon after lunch that they're the most fatigued? And noting down what you think might be contributing to that, because sometimes people don't realise that it's not just physical things that wear you out, it's emotional things and other things that you're doing as well. So working out and keeping a diary of when you get fatigued, what's contributing it, can actually be really helpful. So tip number 1 is accept it. When you take some self-control in managing your fatigue, your energy levels will get better. Next tip is to get involved. So start building a support team, and being successful in fatigue self-management means getting both help and support from others. So you can get support from healthcare professionals, as I mentioned. So you should see your GP to see whether you have an underlying medical cause. You can see cancer rehab physios, but you need to get your fatigue symptoms assessed, investigated and managed. You need help to manage fatigue. Also, getting involved means being alert to the warning signs of fatigue. So fatigue warning signs may be you've got tired eyes, you've got tired legs, you've got a whole body tiredness, your shoulders become stiff, you've got decreased energy or a lack of energy, you can't concentrate, you're starting to feel weak, or sometimes when you're fatigued you can start to feel nauseous or start to feel sick. You can get bored, you have lack of motivation, you can have increased irritability, nervousness, you can get more anxious or impatient. So think about what your warning signs are, because one of the key things is to identify what those warning signs are and do something about it before before you're fully tired. Also help others understand and support you. So family and friends can be more helpful if they can put themselves in your shoes and understand what fatigue means to you, understand what you're going through. And also cancer support groups, and I know Leukaemia and blood cancer have some great support groups. That can be really helpful to talk to other people that are also dealing with fatigue so they can understand what you're going through as well. So make sure you help others understand and support you. Also stay connected and motivated, and if you know you should be doing some more activity and you should be walking but you're not motivated to do it, get a friend or a family member to join you, even if it's just walking to the dairy and back. Get someone to come with you to help motivate you and keep you going. One of the things that we have with PINC STEEL is we have some group classes called Next Steps, and these are run by PINC STEEL physios. And what we often find when people go to those is it's really motivating to have other people that are maybe struggling with their energy levels and fatigue as well, but they're there with you and they're supporting you, and then you might meet someone that wants to do some walks and things with you. So stay connected and stay motivated. The importance of a community that just gets it can't be overstated. So if you are feeling all alone and stressed about your fatigue, really make sure you reach out and build a support team to help you. So my next tip is pacing. And pacing is a really big one, and you may have heard of lots of people talk about pacing, but pacing your daily activities is a really important tool for managing fatigue. And people tend to use their fatigue as a guide. So we stop when we get fatigued. We tend often to overdo things or rest too much and then become inactive and lose fitness. But pacing, in short, is about taking a break before we need a rest throughout the day. So it's stopping before you get fatigued. And pacing is all about balancing activity and rest. And it's to bring about improvements in your fatigue levels. So it offers you a chance to control the effects of fatigue and in time lead you to be able to do more. So it's about stopping before you get really tired, having a little pause, having a little break, getting your energy level back so that you can do things. If you keep doing things, then by the time you do anything about it, you're already fatigued and you need to rest. So pacing is designed to be a tool to use not to react to fatigue, but to pre-plan it. So just like you plan a trip away and you think about what you're going to pack in your suitcase, pacing is about a pre-planning strategy with a graded activity plan. So what we do as cancer rehab physios is we figure out your baseline level and then we work out how we're going to increase that. But if we are increasing your activities and you're also busy doing the housework, groceries, looking after grandchildren, all those things at the same day, then all those things can impact you. So pacing is about planning and strategizing and resting before you get tired. So does that make sense? It's also important to remember that activity includes both mental and emotional tasks as well. If you've got something really stressful on at work that you are preparing for, that might wear you out, way more than what you thought. So it's all those other things that may add to your fatigue. And so pacing is about thinking ahead, thinking what, might make you really fatigued and doing something about it. It also can be really tempting to do heaps on the days that you feel good. I feel much better now, I'm going to go and do something big or exciting. But this can often leave you feeling even more tired or have no reserve the next day. So just be careful about that boom and bust cycle. It's something that we see a lot. You feel really, really good, you go way too hard, and then you bust, and then you're tired for the next 3 days. So remember, to even on the good days, think about pacing as well. So pacing is about scheduling time to rest and resting before you become fatigued, and just even short little rests are really effective. Doesn't mean you need to go to bed and go to sleep for an hour. It might just be sitting down for 5 or 10 minutes, clearing your head, doing some breathing exercises, just having a break from what you're doing. One example that people often talk to me about is that old saying about how do you eat an elephant? Well, the answer is apparently one bite at a time. So pacing is like carrying out activities one bite at a time, not trying to tackle everything all in one go. So helpful tips for pacing are keep a record of what you're doing and how much you're doing, and write that down so that you've got an understanding of what you're doing, wanting to do throughout the day. And alternate heavier tasks with lighter ones. So if you've got something that's quite physical that you have to do, your next task you might do sitting down. So alternate your tasks. Do little bits often rather than trying to do a whole lot. So you may previously have been able to, mow the lawns, entire amount of lawns in one go, whereas now with your energy levels being less, you can't do that. So break it down, do the front lawn, one day and the back the next, or get someone else to do it. So also, it's important to start low and start slowly and build up your ability. The other thing is don't increase your expenditure more than 10% each week. And I think that's one of the big things when you're getting back into doing more activities, you start getting a bit more energy, you should make sure that you're not building up more than 10%, because then again you can have that boom bust effect. You start feeling better, you start doing a little bit too much, and then you have another setback. So it's really important that you build up gradually and you build up slowly. And if you have a bad day, we all have bad days, try and do something, but remember just to be kind to yourself. You're allowed to rest if you're having a bad day. And if you go through a bad patch and your fatigue gets a lot worse, go back to the level that you can cope with and start again. So, it's a bit of a roller coaster. I know there'll be days where you feel good or weeks that you feel better than others, but just remember that if going through a bad patch, start again, go back to the level that you can cope with and slowly build up again. One thing to think about is think of your energy supply as a battery. So say you've got a level of fatigue now, so your battery is running at about 50% of what it used to run at, and you've got 50% battery to get through your entire day. So just getting out of bed, showering, getting dressed, having breakfast, doing some housework, you may already have used up 40% of that energy. So you've only got 10% of your battery to get through the entire day. The problem if you don't rest now is that you use your computer, you use your brain battery to keep you going because your other batteries ran out. And when you start using your brain computer battery to keep you going, that means you're running on adrenaline. So when you're running on adrenaline, you can keep going. But then when you crash, you really, really crash. And often when you crash at night, you become wired and tired. So you can't sleep. So you know that feeling of, like you're so tired and you really want to sleep, but you can't shut your body down. Often that's because you've been running on adrenaline. You've been using your computer too much to keep you going. So, and that's when the cycle gets worse because you don't sleep properly, you wake up exhausted, and you're tired and you can't sleep. So one of the things, is about pacing is to rest before you get tired. And that means you can charge up that battery. If it's 50%, if it's down to 10, you can charge it up again by having some rest. So then you can use that battery again to keep you going. And then when that battery wears out, you can go to sleep rather than using your computer. Does that make sense? So it is really important to rest before you get tired so you're not going to keep running on adrenaline. So my next tip is about prioritising and planning your days and planning ahead. And I suppose the most important thing is really deciding what activities are important to you and what can be delegated. And this is about conserving your energy so that you're doing activities that you really value. And fatigue really does often drive a wedge between the things that you care about and what you actually do. And if you give attention to those things that deserve it and that are truly important to you, then you need to conserve your energy for maybe some things that are less important. So, for example, if your relationship with your partner is really, really important to you, and you really think, every time they come home from work, I'm so tired, maybe then you think, okay, I'm going to rest prior to them coming home so that we can go out for dinner or something. So prioritise what's actually really important for you to use your energy with. If it's caring for your children, maybe you get someone to drop them off at school so that you've got more energy after school to play with them, things like that. It's just really thinking about what's important to you. If your health is really important to you, then prioritising some gentle exercise is a really good idea. So put that first and then have a rest and then, delegate the housework to someone else if that's what's wearing you out. So prioritising, I think, is a really important tool for fatigue management. Thinking ahead, planning your activities, and not overstretching yourself. Making lists is a really good idea, but if you have a really long list and you don't get through it, then don't beat yourself up. You've got to be able to be flexible as well. But I think, personally, I think delegate from the people that I've worked with, delegation is something many people actually find hard to do, and I think it's because we're used to managing everything, being on top of everything, everything's under our control, we can do it, and delegating is really hard. Also, often you'll have people going, how can I help? So that's the perfect time to actually delegate when someone says, how can I help? Give them something practical to do. Give them something that wears you out that's not that important to you. It's not as important as you're looking after your kids or something else that you really want to do. So delegation is actually really important. Often you will have people around you that want to help, but they don't know how to help. Give them something to do, whether it's mowing the lawns or something that you know wears you out, but it's not that important to you. So tip number 4, I think, really is prioritise, plan, and definitely delegate. So tip number 5 is exercise. And people that know me know this is one of my favourite topics. But if you don't like exercise, if you hate exercise, love activity, love moving, love something else. But exercise is so important. There's so much robust evidence in the literature now behind the success of physical activity for managing fatigue. So what we know is exercise will help improve your energy levels, reduce fatigue, improve your fitness and feelings of vitality, and it has many other benefits, including improving your confidence, lifting your mood, increasing your bone density, reducing anxiety and depression, and also improving your strength, your stamina, your endurance. It really does help improve your quality of life, and it's such an important tool for exercise, for managing your fatigue. The thing with exercise, though, is it needs to invigorate you, not wear you out. So it's not about go hard or go home. It's doing a little bit, doing it often, so that it invigorates you and makes you feel better, not wear you out. And I think that's where you've got to be really careful when you have fatigue, that you are really always thinking about it invigorating you, not wearing you out. So short, regular sessions are what are helpful. If you used to be able to walk for 60 minutes, no problem, then you're able to spend a couple of hours in the garden or those sorts of things, you may not be able to spend the amount of time now. So shorter sessions are much more effective. With exercise, you need to think about the type, the intensity, the duration, and the frequency of that exercise. So what type of exercise should you do? Well, the number one type of exercise you should do is exercise that you like. That's number one. It should make you happy. Don't do something that you don't like. But you should try and do some cardiovascular exercise, so some walking or swimming or cycling, whatever you like. You should also try and do some resistance kind of exercise. So that's doesn't have to be weights. It could be resistance bands. It could be your own body weight. Definitely doesn't have to be at a gym, it can be at home, but you should also try and incorporate some strengthening exercises as well. So both cardiovascular and resistance exercises are really important for helping with your fatigue. The intensity is important. So what intensity should you work out at? Well, intensity very much is an individual thing. It'll depend how your baseline fitness, what you can cope with. But sometimes we can cope with a higher intensity for a shorter burst rather than a low intensity for a long time. So the intensity needs to be managed. It may be that you're starting a lot less intense than what you used to do. But that's fine, you've got to start somewhere. The duration is important, I've talked about that. It may mean that you are only exercising for 10 minutes at a time before you have a rest. But the duration, again, is really important because it needs to invigorate you. The other thing with intensity, too, is your usual walk that you like doing or used to do may be quite hilly. If you live in Wellington, it probably is. And you might not be able to cope with that intensity. So you might have to drive to the flat and do your walking on the flat. So thinking about the type, the intensity, the duration, and the frequency. So if you're cutting back your duration, so if you're able to do 10 minutes a day, then you may need to do it more frequently. So you may do a little session in the morning and one in the afternoon until you can build that up to a longer duration. So all these things may be different from what you've previously done. And as I said at the start, there's no one size fits all. So I really recommend that you see someone that assesses you, gets your baseline measurements, and tells you what exercise will help you. And that will get you started, give you a plan to get you started to help. So one of the patients that springs to mind that I saw not that long ago, she was 26 and she had really severe chemotherapy, and she was really fatigued. She was a dancer, so she was used to being pretty fit, but she was just weak everywhere and was really struggling. She had tried to do a hydrotherapy class, so that was a 1-hour class in the water, completely wore her out, made her fatigue a lot worse. And she came to me and she was really distressed she was only 26 and she was just so fatigued she couldn't do any of the things that she was enjoying. And so what we did is, first of all, we found her baseline measures. She could only exercycle on a stationary exercise bike for 1 minute, was her level of deconditioning. So what we did was we did some strength exercises, and if lot of our PINC STEEL physios have Pilates equipment. I don't know if you've seen a machine called a reformer, but you can actually exercise lying down. So we started her exercising lying down. It's got springs and pulleys, so we gained her strength, gave her regular rests, and we sort of worked more on a circuit basis. So she did a little bit and rested, a little bit and rested. She ended up building up her exercycle was what she enjoyed, so we hired her an exercycle that she could do at home, and she regularly started doing a little bit of the exercycle at home as well as some of the exercises we'd prescribed. So 9 months later, she rode in a 100k cycle race. So she was really, once she got going, once we managed her energy levels, she got better and better, and that gained her confidence, and she was just a completely changed woman. So what I wanted to say is, you can be really fatigued, really deconditioned, and think, oh my goodness, there's no way that I can get my energy back. But if you work with someone who can help you, tell you what you need to do, so it's gradually increasing that exercise, monitoring it. Sometimes you can do more in some days than you can in the other, then you can really make a difference. And so I've seen, those success stories in fatigue time and time again. If you're currently going through treatment, you can't expect that kind of progression. So what we try to do while people are undergoing treatments is see if we can limit the amount of deconditioning that you get. So we try and maintain your levels or make sure that you're not getting too deconditioned. So it's more about maintenance. But what we find is that people that are able to stay active during people are a lot less fatigued and have a lot more energy when that treatment finishes. So it's really worth doing during treatment, not just waiting till the treatment has finished. Right, so deconditioning, I talked a little bit about them, but deconditioning often goes hand in hand with cancer-related fatigue. And it can be a really big barrier to get people to exercise and be able to cope at work and managing their lives. Deconditioning affects all body systems. So usually what happens with deconditioning is that inactivity results from that. So the less you do, the less you are capable of doing, and the less you can do. And this cycle can occur really quickly if you're really sick or bedridden, or it can occur really slowly. You just start doing less, and then slowly you're only able to do less. So when people start doing less, their body adjusts to that, and it can be much harder to then go and do the activities that you want to do. One of the things with deconditioning is that your muscles just don't become weak. They also shorten when they're deconditioned. So when you have shortened and weak muscles, that then affects your joints. So then you can get joint pain and you can get other health problems. It can affect your posture. It can lead to other health conditions and a lot of pain. So deconditioning doesn't just make you weak, it can also affect your muscles and your joints. It can also affect your respiratory system. So the lack of use of your respiratory muscles, the diaphragm and the muscles between your ribs, they also weaken, and then it can be harder. The work of breathing can be harder. So then you can just get exhausted from breathing, get more breathless. So it can affect your respiratory system as well as your muscular system. When it becomes difficult to breathe, and that often can be a really big barrier to exercise. But again, working as a cancer rehab physio, we often see people that are really breathless, and we can help work within their limits and build up their tolerance to exercise. The good news about deconditioning is that with the right support and with exercise, we can get you back up that scale, and we can increase your energy levels and increase your muscle strength, increase your muscle length, increase the ability of your respiratory muscles to work, and improve all of those things. And it is, with exercise, it is something that is, as I said before, it is very much tailored for the individual, but it is something that if you're working with someone and they are helping you, you can gain these benefits. So if it was a drug, if exercise was a drug, I think everyone would be taking it. It affects every system in your body. It's not overly expensive, and you don't have to go overseas to do it. You can do it here in New Zealand. So I highly recommend that tip number 5 is exercise, avoid inactivity. If you hate exercise, love activity. My next tip is restorative therapy, and I think this is really important to build up your battery, so the battery I was talking about, so that you can charge more fully each day. And again, restorative therapy needs to be something that you particularly enjoy, but it's a chance to try some new things that might give you some energy. So research has shown that passive coping strategies such as resting more, sleeping more, decreasing your physical activity are ineffective in relieving fatigue. So the more rest you have is not going to help your fatigue. And it can create a vicious cycle and you actually become more fatigued. However, coping strategies like learning relaxation techniques, stress management, yoga, breathing techniques, all those sorts of things can actually restore your energy levels and reduce your fatigue. So it takes a huge amount of emotional energy to cope with cancer, and this often disrupts our normal breathing, and it can when it disrupts your breathing, it can make it more difficult for you to relax, it can make it more difficult for you to sleep well, and it can make it more difficult for you to cope with treatment or cope with managing your life. So breathing is like one of the number one things that you should learn to do if you, once you're going through treatment or you're caring for someone that's going through treatment. And cancer rehab physios can help with that. So often what happens is we just start breathing really shallow, short breaths, and this can then really affect ability to relax. So sometimes restorative therapy, if you're thinking about pacing and resting before you get tired, might be sitting down and making sure you're breathing into your belly. So putting your hand on your belly, sitting down, taking some deep breaths, and that in itself can help give you some more energy. The other thing is to be proactive about decreasing stress. And, I know a lot of you will be under a lot of stress, but doing things that are proactive to try and help you manage that, because too much stress can make you feel really emotionally battered and can make you feel much more fatigued. So sometimes doing things that just avert your attention to your fatigue or avert your attention to your stress are proactive stress management techniques, like reading or listening to music or doing an activity that you enjoy. So anything that can distract you from your fatigue or from your stress is a proactive mechanism to decrease your stress. Another thing that can help decrease stress is to increase our social connections. So put simply, we're better together. So, sometimes it's really difficult and really isolating going through cancer treatment. So if you can, reserve some of your energy to meet with friends or meet with family members, that can help in itself, can help decrease stress as well. Studies have also shown that getting outside and reconnecting with nature can help lift depression and improve your energy and decrease your fatigue. And it's something that I really enjoy doing, is getting outside, and if there's some green, going for a walk in the green, those sort of things can be very helpful restorative therapy. So you don't have to just going out there and sitting outside, taking in some deep breaths, all those sorts of things, having a little rest outside can help with restorative therapy. There's obviously other things like yoga, if you enjoy those sorts of things, again, that can help with that. But number one thing, find something that you enjoy, try some new things, but really think about how you can do some restorative therapy. The next tip is good nutrition. So cancer-related fatigue is often made worse if we're not eating or drinking enough, or we're not eating the right foods, or we're not eating regularly enough. So maintaining good nutrition can help you feel better, can help you give you more energy and more strength. And there is so much conflicting advice around nutrition that I highly recommend making an appointment with a dietitian so that they can give you nutritional advice tailored for you. Again, it needs to be tailored for you as an individual. So after cancer treatment or during cancer treatment, there's a lot of things that can affect your dietary intake, so changes to taste, appetite, your relationship with food, your connection with your body. You can really struggle with the hunger and fullness signs as well. And so eating regularly is something that's really important to consider. And a dietitian that I work quite closely with, often she'll get people to eat every 2 to 3 hours initially. It's to try and help you keep your energy levels up. It might only be small bits, but I really recommend that you see a dietitian to help with giving you the right nutrition to help with your fatigue. You need to obviously make sure you've got the basic calorie intake right, especially if you've lost weight. If you're not eating enough, you definitely that's going to increase your fatigue. Having protein in your diet is important. Having plenty of fluids is important. avoiding skipping meals is really important. So good nutrition doesn't mean a really strict diet, but what it does mean, I think, is thinking about self-care nutrition. So you should think about foods that make you feel better, but you don't have to go on a really strict diet. So getting there, my last tip really is to set targets and action plans. And, this involves breaking down a goal into a series of really small, realistic steps. And, this step can translate some of your hopes and good intentions into concrete plans. And so I think having a goal and having some action plans can be really helpful. So, for example, let's say that you want to take control of your symptoms and you want to do some pacing. So if you can pursue this in a variety of ways, obviously, but you could, your target might be that you want to take regular rest breaks, or you want to go to bed earlier, or you want to keep a record of your activities and your symptoms. So, set a target. What you need to do is you need to be specific. You need to say what you want to do, write it down, how much. So if you want to rest more, you should write when you want to rest, how much you want to rest, 15 minutes, morning and afternoon, how often you want to do that, whether you want to do that every day. So be specific in your target and your goal. So some of the people that we help with cancer rehab, I'll just give you some of their things that they choose for their targets which have helped them. So, you might want to rest for 20 minutes twice a day. You might find that you start getting fatigued late before lunch, so you want to have a rest late morning, and then you want to have a little rest late afternoon. Write it down and put that into your target. So taking scheduled rests is often a real popular first target for people, and it can be really effective first step for managing your fatigue. It might be go to bed at 10 o'clock 5 days a week. You might find that you are running on adrenaline, you're staying up later and later and then finding it difficult to go to sleep. That might be a target. It might be find a cleaner so that you've got someone to do your cleaning, so that you can spend time doing things with your kids. But all those sorts of things can be really a helpful way for you to manage your fatigue. And again, it might be walking. It might be walking 20 minutes 5 times a week initially and then building that up. Some people's first target is to walk to the letterbox every day. So it doesn't matter how small it is, but if you set a target, you're more likely to achieve it. But I did lie, I've got one more tip, and that is to be patient with yourself. Take things steady, take them slowly. It can take a little while to see improvements and changes, but you will get there. And I think you also need to reflect on how far you've come. Often when I see people in the clinic with their fatigue, they forget how far they've actually come, how much more energy they've actually got since they finished treatment or from what they had a month ago. So be patient with yourself and really reflect on how far you've come. Try not to be tempted to overdo it. Give yourself time to get there. And a good saying is take one day at a time. I suppose my key thing really is to make sure you ask and get help. It's not a sign of weakness, but it's a sign of strength, and just be patient and kind to yourself. So just quickly, PINK STEEL has 4 programs and which all can help improve your fatigue and energy levels. And the PINK STEEL program, so the pink is for any woman with any type of cancer and steel is for men. And these are individualised physiotherapy programs where they'll have an assessment of you and they will work out how the cancer treatments have affected you or your energy levels and what you want to get back to, what's important to you, and they'll help devise a plan to do that. Doesn't mean you have to keep going and seeing that physio every week for the rest of the year. It might mean they give you a plan that you can do at home, and they may check in on you in a month or so. So it's not something that means that you have to do it every week, but they can definitely give you some guidance and going forward. The next steps in PaddleOn programs are group sessions. And again, they can be really helpful for managing your fatigue. You're with other people. If you find it really hard to motivate yourself to do activity, often it's a lot better to do it with other people. With next steps, we combine Pilates, yoga, cardiovascular exercise, and we have relaxation session at the end. So we try and do all those things that the research has shown that you really need to do after cancer treatment. And our PaddleOn program is quite a special program where we take people out onto the water, and even, I was talking about restorative therapy before, just being out on the water can be wonderful to make you feel a lot better. It's completely different to being on a hospital ward anyway. And you meet people and, you can learn a new skill if you've never paddleboarded before, but it's a great, great form of exercise that you can do. So how do you find a PINK STEEL physio? We do have some brochures here and on the side on the way out if you want a brochure. So we have PINK STEEL physios throughout the country, and they are all experienced physiotherapists that have done postgraduate training in cancer rehab, so they understand the treatments that you've had and what you're going through. And you can just go onto our website to find a physio that's close to you. So my key take-home messages are, remember, every individual is affected by fatigue in different ways and needs individualised support. Make sure that you're asking and accepting help. So all those people and kind neighbours and things that say, I'd love to do something for you, say, yes, you can do this. Or if you're caring for someone with cancer, accept it, find out how that fatigue is affecting them, how it impacts them, and see if there's things that you can get people to help the both of you with. You're not alone. Make sure you connect with others who understand your symptoms, and stay positive.